Today's review is something really quite different compared to what I normally do on Higher Plane Games, and it's because AlphaZoo is an educational tool, and so that piques my interest because of what I do in my day job. Outside of doing my YouTube stuff and all of the websites that I do in my spare time, I do have a proper full-time day job as well, and part of what I do is helping a large team of individuals create instructional content for either the mass public or internal staff in my organisation to follow in a step-by-step format, or to pick up ideas and concepts quickly and then act on them in the right way. This means that whenever we create content, we're always looking at whether or not that content hits and matches the audience that it's addressed to. So, when I look at AlphaZoo, and it's supposed to be an educational toy for parents and children to play together, going round a zoo, learning how to type and spell certain animals, foods and items, I instantly think, all of my day job revolves around language and digital skills. How does this work? Is there anything that I can learn from it? And can I use a test or user research this and go off on a tangent and apply my real world skills to AlphaZoo? And that's what I've done here. So the gameplay footage that you're seeing is not little kids and parents running around playing AlphaZoo. This is me showing what the game does, because otherwise you'd be bored to tears watching kids try and navigate themselves around the zoo aged between 3 and 5. But what you've got here is a zoo that you can wander around. You walk up to an enclosure and then the animal's name comes up on the screen. And then you're supposed to be able to type in the name of the animal, get it right, and the enclosure comes to life with the animals in and it's bright and colourful. You can then feed the animals and it will either feed it grass or meat depending on the type of animal, and you can type in poo and it will poo as well, complete with fart sound effect. And funny enough, that's the first thing the kids picked up on. So aside from that, you've got a Ferris wheel to go on. You can mooch around on trains to various stops to get around the zoo a bit quicker. But the zoo itself is very small. There's only 20 enclosures with 20 animals in for you to learn. Then you've got about another 20-25 different foods available in the cafe that you can type in and then get served on a plate to eat. And then there's another selection of items in a shop that you can buy with money that kind of accumulates slowly over time. It feels a bit random the way how money works in this game. So, the idea is that the parent and the child work together to solve and learn and help the child spell these different animals. But there's so many fundamental problems with this game that I just needed to put it out for user testing and user research to show where it falls down. Firstly, the 20 animals are not structured in any particular way, and they give no real feedback aside from the enclosure coming to life that you've got something correct. It needs voiceover so that when you're typing in the letters, it feeds back to you the letter that you're typing in for that positive reinforcement. And then once you've hit that full word, it needs to say the word back to you, potentially with the noise of the animal as well. Would be great to hear of some facts about the animal so that you start to learn more about it, so that it provides some context as to what you're doing and why you're doing it, because it feels too abstract just wandering around a zoo going sheep and typing it in and hoping for the best. There's a real problem here though, that if you do get something wrong, and bearing in mind we're playing with young children here learning, so they're gonna fat finger, the back button didn't seem to work for us. So the only way you could start off spelling something again was to walk away from the enclosure and come back to it. And that felt really like a poor user experience for a kid that doesn't really know what it's doing fully yet. And so even when the parents were driving the experience and just kind of mouthing it out to the kid as they go and going like SHEEP, even that frustration of having to walk away and come back to the enclosure to kind of kick that back off again was palpable whenever I showed it to and had parents and children play. The next thing is that there's no real structure to any of this either. So why is the first animal you come across orangutan? That's like the boss level of animals for a young child to learn to spell and understand. Monkey would have come before that, and before that you would have had cat, dog, cow, small, easier to understand words that you can spell and learn and get that pattern recognition going, because then you'd put like dogs and cats together in an enclosure, and that would help kind of build up that capability as you went along. There seems to be no rhyme or reason, and then some of these animals have got 2 names to it, and you're like, what? It seems like a real random selection with no real thought as to why you're doing what you're doing. User testing and user research with lots of children would have borne this idea out into a better execution. The other thing is that when you move away from the animals and you go onto the shop or the cafe, a lot of these words are quite abstract and they're just listed out. And so it makes no sense to the child to be looking at a list of loads and loads of words that they don't know yet. And then you're like, spell orange or banana. And they're like, ah, and they can't see the banana on the screen. So they don't know what they're getting because you get served it afterwards. So it just feels awkwardly balanced in that you need to be able to associate the image or the object with the letters, have it spelt out phonetically so that you can then, or by letter, sorry, so that you can then build up that capability as you go along. The kids just weren't getting it, and so it became a real hands-off experience, and after 5 to 10 minutes, almost every single child was done. I really like the idea. I think actually merging together digital technology with learning in these types of environments can work really, really well. AlphaZoo just needs an awful lot of work and a real think about, how do I start off on the baseline? How do I build something up from there? So that when you think of language apps like Duolingo and things like that, you get the same questions pop up time and time again, but in different scenarios, to check that you've learnt something at a certain level. AlphaZoo needs to think of its animal enclosures and all of the words that it wants to teach people like levels, and how do you graduate as you move up the chain? Because at the minute, this is a real like slush puppy of a mess, and I'm not really sure who this is for, because it's too hard straight out the blocks for the audience intended, and the parents will be bored to tears because it doesn't actually provide any true interactivity once you've gone around the train a couple of times. So yeah, I'm assuming it might only be the developer watching by the end of this video because it's quite random, but I hope that's informative and constructive feedback to the developer, but also for anyone else that's looking at education content or education apps, particularly aimed at young children, but just in anyone learning a new skill. You need to really sit down and think, how does this work as a structure towards getting somewhere to an end goal? And then you need to build your user testing and user research and your insights around that, building towards that end product or goal. Because otherwise you're going to end up with a misshapen mess, and that's really what AlphaZoo has become. So yeah, I'm not sure if that's a topic that anyone's interested in. If you're interested in user research, designs and all of those kind of stuff, drop a comment down below and I can always do some bespoke videos on it. But yeah, this is AlphaZoo. Written review will be over on higherplanegames.com. You guys take care. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplaynetwork. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.